Hello, everyone. My name is Jim McGovern. I am a loss control consultant with CCMSI, and formerly I was a police officer in the city of Chicago. Had many roles there. I was a gang crimes officer, a SWAT officer, a homicide detective, and ultimately a sergeant assigned to the patrol division, where I was on the street every single day. But also, one of the more interesting things about my career, I think, and how it translates to safety, is I was a training officer in the academy at one time for defensive tactics. And that was back in the early 1990s. And we started to understand how we can train people from everyday life to be police officers. So I'd like to share that with you and give you some examples of how you can use this in your everyday life, whether you're an industrial worker or a coach or whatever activities you participate in. You might enjoy this presentation. So you might be a restaurant worker, a chef, a construction worker, a business associate, or maybe even a student coming in the police work. So you would quit that job on a Friday or Saturday, as the case may be, and start a academy that would take 5 or 6 months on a Monday morning to become a police officer. One of the biggest challenges we face as training administration is transforming you into from your previous life into a police environment. And I think everyone can appreciate the fact that that is a challenging role change, no matter what your previous position was, and to get you to the level where you can think as a police officer. One of the things that we identify with as this job constantly gets more challenging, constantly gets more serious, and faces new challenges almost every single day, no matter where you are in this country. One thing that I'd like to point out is that police officers are always focused on what they're doing because they're trained to be focused. They're trained to understand situations, and they're trained to bring their focus in from wide range to narrow range. And that's an important element in this exercise. The WYOR system is white, yellow, orange, red. And it is an escalating system based on your level of focus or attention to a task. So if you're in level white, you will have a wide open viewpoint, sitting relaxed, nothing necessarily capturing your attention. Maybe you're reading a paper in a lunchroom, or you're on break from your job, or you're just kind of casual at that time, right? Yellow is the next step up, and this is where you are probably driving to work, walking from your car to your workplace, getting your stuff together for the day. Maybe you need tools, certain equipment, maybe you need to put on certain protective clothing to do a certain job. That is condition yellow. Once you're kind of hands-on, we would say, orange is the next level, and that focus level requires you to be a lot more focused, a lot more serious about what you're doing, and a lot less distracted by other outside elements. So we can probably best describe this if you put your hands very far apart like you're holding a big beach ball, and that's condition white. Then you go to yellow, and as the hands come in, the focus level goes up, and orange is almost right in front of you, maybe shoulder width apart. And then when we're doing a very serious task for a very short time, maybe only a couple minutes, we're in condition red, which is the highest condition on this system. Condition red is when we are actually, a police officer might be in a shooting, a police officer might be performing an arrest situation of an assailant, or in the industrial world, it might be a situation where we are doing a line break or replacing a valve on a piece of equipment where there is actually exposure to the elements inside of a tank, perhaps. And we can also put a sports analogy into it, into where maybe it's when the quarterback is throwing a pass to a receiver. Those people are, for that couple seconds or that time period, in focus level red. Once the play is called dead and the whistle blows, they're back down to orange or yellow. That progression of going up and down is really the element of how to use mental focus the best. It has many benefits, as you can see listed here. It's great for mentoring. It creates a step-by-step methodology. A teamwork environment reduces injuries and trains workers in understanding focus, because many people may not understand, even though we say it all the time, be focused, stay safe, and pay attention. Those concepts might be foreign to some people. So as we go up and down these levels, as previously described, we talk about how much time we can spend in each level. Wide open focus, white, would be an unlimited amount of time. As we move up to yellow, less time, maybe 8 or 10 hours. When we go to an orange level of focus, we are thinking maybe 20, 30, 45 minutes tops. And then a very small amount of time, again, in condition red. This is vital to being able to look and pay attention to a task at hand without causing mental exhaustion. Workers can adjust this activity up and down based on what they're doing throughout the day. It's too simple to say that we're in condition red all day long. That would be impossible, and I'll explain why in a minute if we use a sports analogy. We can also use this at safety meetings and on JSA forms. We can indicate the level of focus required. We can also use it on behavior-based analysis audits. You can ask somebody, where are you at on the mental scale, on the mental focus levels? And it's good refresher, and it's good conversation. Police officers go up and down all day long. Depending on the task that they have, they could be relaxing, having a cup of coffee. They could be within minutes later breaking up some kind of argument, a domestic disturbance perhaps, or they could be handling a riot situation or a shooting situation, some kind of violent thing. But police officers go up and down just like industrial workers, just like athletes, coaches, and everyone else. So this training program is to benefit the everyday worker, the everyday coach, and the everyday person by understanding the training that police officers go through and how you can incorporate that into your. As I said, athletes would be the easiest example to understand. Maybe there's a golfer or an athlete who is in a foot race. Maybe it's a 100-meter dash, and as both the golfer and the runner walk up to the starting gate or to the tee box, they are in a focus level white to yellow, and then as they get closer to the starting line and to the ball, they get ready to hit the ball or start the race, they're in condition orange. When the starting pistol goes off or they begin the swing, condition red. And then as the event finishes, the ball lands, the race is over, they come back down to orange and yellow to participate again and go on to the next race or the next hole. It's a very important element to teach our kids to, and just as we teach our workers, to mentor and train workers the first day on the job. It's important to teach kids what's expected of them. How many times as a young athlete have we been told, pay attention to what you're doing, get focused, catch the ball? And it's important for these young people and these new people in our workplaces to understand exactly what is expected of them, to understand exactly what mental focus is. As an example, I want to use an industrial setting. This is an opportunity to probably best put this into display. If you're sitting at a lunchroom or a break room waiting for a supervisor to come in and give you your task or assignment for the day, You might be sitting in this lunchroom to the left, maybe reading a paper, maybe looking at your phone, maybe just sitting there thinking as you're browsing through your work assignments for the day or what was completed yesterday. You're generally at a focus level white. Basically, you can sit there all day and you're not really going to focus on anything. When the supervisor or the foreman walks in and gives you a job, this is when the mental focus level changes. You listen to what he says, you prepare yourself, you are going from white to yellow, right? And what is happening is you are making a mental checklist of everything you need. You're getting all your tools together, you're getting your people together, your personnel, your equipment. As that process continues, narrowing that focus. You know where you have to go. You know you're going to do a pre-task analysis once you get to that job, once you get to that unit or that site. You know that you're going to double check to make sure everything has been locked out. You're going to make sure that everything is safe. You're going to walk the job down, perhaps get a permit in this situation. And as you put your hands on the tools, get your crew together, a game plan together for, let's say, taking off a valve, you're going to go from yellow to. So we typically assign that level to your hands are on the tools. We want you paying a lot of attention to what you're doing at that point. As you identify the task at hand and the valve that needs to be replaced, and you double check it, and you know all the variables, you're going to now open that line by removing that valve and then replacing it with a new one. So this is a very serious operation. And as you start to take that valve off, we go up into mental focus level red, and that allows us to complete that task, understand the dangers, and work proficiently to put the new valve on. Then we can go back to condition orange or yellow. A couple more things on condition white, just so you understand. Condition white is where we are during the day when we're not working or eating lunch or when we are just generally relaxing, waiting for our next assignment. Picture this as your specialty crew and you go out and do only very serious work, and then you come back in and wait for the next assignment. For purposes of example and demonstration, that's a pretty good analysis. This condition is generally just described as being aware and relaxed, and the mind is not tasked with any specific thought. We move up to condition focuses, we see that condition yellow allows us 8 to 10 hours. So this might be a whole day. Maybe you have a routine job that requires some degree of focus. Maybe you work in a mechanic shop and there's cars coming in and out. But generally, if things are at a standstill and people are just working on their assigned tasks and you're working around them, doing your thing, you might be just in yellow for a great part of the day, except when on break or on lunch. But you are more aware, you're paying attention, you're focused, and the task does not require a great deal of concentration, but it's a good position to be working in. We describe that as mental focus level yellow. As you continue on, maybe you have a specific task, as we just talked about in that example, where you're actually going to put your hands on some tools and start changing some parts or doing something that requires more attention. You're very aware, you're paying close attention, and you're concentrating on that specific task. This is for a short period of time, only 30 to 45 minutes. With your hands on the tools and the task, and you're attempting to finish what you started, begin this task, and really make a progress toward focusing in and paying very close attention. That would be condition on. At a very high level, condition red would be only a 2 to 3 minute operation, which requires extreme focus, intense concentration, and great attention to detail. The important thing here is you can only spend a very short period of time there. And some of the best examples of all in the police world revolve around stopping a car, paying attention to the occupants, paying attention to what the occupants are doing. If somebody was to get out with the guns, and then you have to be focused on that. And to give a very generic example, maybe there's a shooting that take place, then you are in a condition red, and then to come back down after that situation has terminated, and you can come back down to yellow-orange as other officers appear to help secure the scene. That's generally the idea. And we all know that from watching Cops or live PD. We can all identify with the stress and the focus level that a job requires. So let me give you another example. If you're not sure yet how to apply this to your own workstation, your own career, your own job, then maybe this will help. If you're doing a lift with a crane, right? You're maybe part of a group, you're 3 or 4 guys. There's the crane operator, there's the forward and the back lookout. There's the laborer person who makes sure that the outriggers are planted properly on a good firm ground or on a pad, right? That's the condition level yellow, right? So we're out on that field, we're conducting an operation, we're going through the pre-task analysis where maybe we're going to barricade that unit off so nobody walks through. We're checking the crane, of course. Everyone's doing their individual job. Then we all get together to go over a lift plan. We advise people what's going on. Maybe there's a unit operator that we have to let know. Maybe there's other workers in our way. We have to let them know that we're going to be moving some equipment through the air by the crane, and we have to give out audible direction. There's a lot of things to do, and all of that requires a very good communication and some focus on that level. As we go to condition orange. Now we're assigning tasks from the lift plan. So somebody's placing those outriggers on it. Again, the hands are on the tools. The operator's going through his function check on the crane. The rigger is checking all the rigging to make sure that everything is in place, to make sure everything is proper, to make sure that the equipment is not considered out of service, that everything is working properly. So those are our final preparations. It requires a more higher level of focus, and that's why we're at condition orange. Again, our hands are on the tools, we're checking everything out, we're going through everything, and physically looking and checking every inch of what needs to be done. As we go along, red, we lift with the crane the item, the box in this case, or crate, might come off the ground, and that's when we're in condition red. The operator is moving along from the signal operator is lifting, the rigging is in place, everything is fine, we're maintaining focus on that task, we're watching where we're lifting so we're not going into wires. The forward and back signal man is telling the operator how much room he has, how much clearance he has, where he can set down the crate, and then unhooking the rigging, we begin to descend in this process from red to orange, from orange to yellow, and now back to a relaxed position in focus level yellow or white, depending on the conditions. So we were able to employ this idea at a plant that I worked at in South Texas, and we did an analysis of 3 years of injuries that were sustained at this plant. It was a rather large petrochemical plant, and they had, in 3 years, they had, let's say, 24 recordable injuries, so that's 80 a year. And what we recognized when we took a look at all those injuries, the investigator marked off not paying attention, lack of focus, a little box on the back of an investigation form, contributing to nearly all those accidents, that they weren't in the right mental focus level for the tasks that they were being assigned. And in some of the cases where not the high level work was being conducted, where people were just walking from, let's say, the lunch tent to the unit, that they should have been in a yellow. To walk through an industrial plant, to walk and pick up equipment out of a tool shed or a truck, you should be at a condition yellow, mental focus level yellow. A lot of times what we observed is that employees who worked in those fields, in those areas, walked to pick up equipment or walked in general from their car to the place of their duty assignment, they were in condition white. That accounted for about 75% of all the injuries that were sustained. Slips, trips, and falls, not watching where you're walking, slipping on stairs, entering or exiting a vehicle improperly led to so many different injuries. Just in this case, about 75%. We found that to be very interesting. And one thing that we thought is if we could resolve those 75%, we would have a dramatic effect on the overall injuries at that site. The idea of the foundation of a major injury, the 329-to-1 ratio, was developed by a guy named Heinrich, and he was an insurance adjuster back in the 1930s and 40s, and he wrote a book about industrial accidents. And one thing that has been changed throughout the years is his analysis of injuries. But really, if you look at what he did, and he didn't take a lot of notes and accounted for some change being added to this, but he says out of every 330 incidents, 300 of them will be near misses. So opportunities for us to correct the near misses become very important because there's such a high percentage, right? As we move along, 29 out of the remaining 30 would be minor first aid type injuries, and one of those would be a major injury. And in his view, not all of these injuries were able to be eliminated. He said you're always going to have that one major injury and several minor injuries at this ratio, 329-to-1. It was very at the time, and he really contributed quite a bit to understanding the idea of which people work and at what rate they're injured. But the name of his book was Industrial Accident Prevention, a Scientific Approach. And this is very early thinking for this time. If you go back to 1931, we can, in the United States, we were at the height of the Great Depression, and jobs were scarce. Those that were probably high injury jobs. OSHA did not come around to 1970 to enforce any kind of worker safety policies or practices by the government. And Heinrich was really kind of out on his own at this time, trying to get people to pay attention to the rate that workers get injured and to try to understand what a near miss is and to control that near miss. His evaluation was that if we can reduce the amount of injuries by increasing the amount of mitigation and corrective action from each near miss. So the more near misses would result in fewer injuries. It was very interesting at that time. Getting back to our deep dive of the 24 recordable incidents at the Texas petrochemical plant, 0% of those recordable injuries occurred in mental focus level red, or what you would think would be a red level focus job. The high-end jobs were not areas where people typically got hurt. In those 3 years, again, 75% were in areas that they should have been in mental focus level yellow, and ended up that they were only in mental focus level white. And that accounted for so many injuries because they were inappropriate for the task that they. even if it's just walking. So who uses the white, yellow, orange, red mental focus conditioning? As I mentioned before, of course, law enforcement, athletes, students, coaches, firefighters, first responders can all benefit from this kind of thinking. This ascending and descending level of focus offers us the opportunity to better recognize hazards and to better mitigate those hazards. If we're not paying attention and not focused on what we're doing, obviously that will result in more opportunity. So I mentioned before about lining up for a foot race. Maybe you're doing a 100-meter race and you line up on the track. You're in condition level yellow, change into orange. As the race gets closer, you put your hands on the line, you get in the proper position on the starting block, you're in condition orange. Waiting for the starting pistol to go off, you go into condition red, you run the race in condition red, 10 seconds later, you come back down to orange and you celebrate the victory or whatever, you come back down to orange, yellow, and then back to white. So it's a very good way to demonstrate to people how they can understand this. Whatever sport you fit into the equation or whatever example by work you use, it can be easily broken down. Just like we break down a job hazard analysis, we can break down a task or an event or a sporting event into different levels of focus. Even if you wanted to say maybe your company has a weekly softball event, or maybe you know some people who are competitive in the area of pool playing or bowling, very common. But each of those requires a mental focus level ascending and descending up and down the scale. So it's a great way to let people understand what it is you're trying to tell them and give them the benefit of understanding it through their own perspectives, through their own views and their own experiences. I feel that that's the best way to convey the message. So it becomes very important for us to, as we teach kids or new workers, once again, I bring that up because it is so important for us to introduce these ideas as early on as possible. So people understand what they're getting themselves into, what's going to happen next. If you're training your son or daughter to fire a weapon and or to play football, or to, as this gentleman is here in the picture on the left, working on an electrical box. Obviously, there's danger present in each condition and in each picture. But is your level of understanding and teaching meeting that need? Have you ever wanted the person who's holding the weapon, the person who's going to be working on the electrical box, have you ever wanted to convey a message or be clearer to somebody about what can go wrong, what can happen? So we have to help them understand what is going on and what level of attention they need to be in based on this mental focus, based on their experiences, based on their habits and their relationship to sports or what have you, just so that they can understand how to be trained properly. So this is another example of maybe we're training some new employees at a facility and we are teaching them something new about how something is done, how something is created versus what we used to do. Now we brought in a new tool. So it's important to have job training and hobbies and apply the focus levels to them so people can understand, easily transition from a sports mindset to a work mindset to a play mindset to a work mindset, because in any case we don't want anybody to get hurt. Some of the places that you see this commonly is maybe you're in a welding shop, maybe you're a SWAT officer facing a very dangerous situation, or maybe you're a worker just doing a task every half hour, every 15 minutes. You go back and fill up a wheelbarrow or a forklift or a dump truck full of stuff, and you drive it to a different location. Your mental focus level has to change with the task, and I think that's the most important part of all this, is that the worker has to understand that the level of focus has to meet what they're doing. It'd be impossible for somebody to say, like even a professional boxer, Muhammad Ali, I bet he was in a focus level red for all 15 rounds against George Foreman. I don't think that he was. And the reason is you have to relax. You cannot be at a mental focus level for more than 2 or 3 minutes without some kind of burnout. One of the examples that I had in a training class was when I had a crane operator tell me he's in focus level red all day long. And I said, well, you might be in an elevated situation, but there is such a thing as a brake on a crane. They fly the equipment up to a certain point, and then they can actually get to a rested state of mind. Now, for the rest of us, it'd be very difficult, but for a crane operator who knows what he's doing, he can park that piece of equipment safely and kind of come down a little bit mentally to an orange or maybe even to a yellow, and then escalate back up when he has to move that equipment. But there are jobs that require different demands on that level. But the shorter period of time a person is in focus level red, the better off they are. The same thing would be for situational awareness. If you've taken a class of concealed carry or so many other examples like we had after 9/11 in this country, they would talk about the threat level, the homeland security, and they would identify them with these very same colors. If we were in condition yellow for a day, we could kind of sort of relax. If we were in condition orange, well, then everyone's paying a little bit more attention to what's going on around them. Same thing in concealed carry classes now mention situational awareness and assign these levels to it, because it's such a good way to articulate where you have to be if you're carrying a firearm, because so many things can go wrong at that point, and you have to be paying attention to what's around you. So I hope that this presentation really helps to answer some of your questions about where you should be in mental focus levels, how you can apply this to your job, how you can train others by allowing them to understand the correlation between work and sport, and how they can better use these in their assigned tasks to identify hazards, to mitigate hazards, to train others, and most of all, to work safely. Thank you very much.